So, hey everybody, I'm Tyler Erden. I'm here. I got a special guest today, Justin Donaldson. We met this fall at a convention, Lexicon, and we just started chatting. It was a good time. He's got a cool journey he's going to share with us today. The overall topic that we'll relate back to will be kind of creating more authentic art and how that can benefit you and, of course, grow your audience. So anyways, you have a cool bit of work that you're very unique in that you really specialize in nature.
Yeah.
You specialize in foliage, and you're finding a great kind of market, and you're making it work for you. And
Yeah.
I think that's fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah, I love it. It's been kind of hard to get to that point, actually, to be honest with you.
And that's what I want to recap today. Take us
Yeah.
back any number of years, show us a little bit about your work, and then we can perhaps reflect on why it wasn't working for you at that particular point.
For the last 2 or so years, I've really been working at, or maybe 3 years, I've been working at trying to be an illustrator.
Mm-hmm.
I had spent some time doing fine art, lots of oil portraits and everything, but it never quite worked out. I have a brother in the games industry, so for a while I was like, well, you know what? Maybe I just try and get in there with him and do some concept art. And I really tried to hit the freelance market hard. I ended up being a part of a small games company for a while, and that kind of kept me afloat. But like any small games company, you come in as one thing and then you just do everything all the time, and that really sucks. So at the end of a couple years, it was sad the company ended up folding, but I was really grateful that I had a chance. I was like, you know what, this is it. I'm gonna do this art thing just for myself full time as a freelancer. So I'm doing that. I'm thinking, okay, I went on to sites like Upwork, and it's hard times, but you just got to try and make it work. You got to make the hustle. So it's a lot of hustle. Oh yeah, I got 2 kids, and as I'm making this decision, we're coming on having our second kid, and it was hard. So you kind of get into this place where you're like, okay, what do I need to do to be a freelance artist? And you stop and you look around. Well, what are the other freelance artists doing who are making it work? And a lot of the time, you don't really get to see into everything, and you go, well, like, okay, I want a chance to do everything. That's the only way I can make it work at that point. So I'm going to try and be everything and do everything. So this is what I have up on Readsy at the moment. I don't get much work through here anymore. It's a small community for illustrations. I was working and doing a lot of book covers for a while.
And those are lovely. I love those.
Thank you. Yeah. These couple of ones are kind of really, I put them at the top of my profile because this is kind of where what I was doing before meets what I'm doing now.
Yeah. Very
nature filled, very full of peace and serenity. And then we come to 4 aliens riding a giant mechanical bug, a spaceship, some card art.
Yep.
I was doing all of this stuff, and it wasn't bad.
No, it's not. It's not bad at all.
It's not bad, but it is completely in the hustle, and the hustle doesn't work.
Casting like a very, very wide net, right?
Yeah, like these characters that were exactly what I needed for the project I was on, but man, did I take no joy out of making them.
I can
a
relate.
Frog riding a giant rabbit.
I can relate.
So yeah, I was kind of just in this area. I'm doing art for games, I'm doing art for books, I'm doing art for as many things as I possibly could because I just needed to make it work. And then I got to the point where I was like, oh, here's Jesus striding along. So what ended up happening is I was in this spot, and on the side I was doing on the side to just relieve the stress of all of this hustle, family. I have some sensory processing issues, and so the only way I can find peace and joy sometimes is by going outside and painting.
It's awesome.
So we're in the middle of this journey, and I ended up applying for a mentorship with a fantasy artist group called One Fantastic Week.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up being able to be a mentee for them. And they came to this piece here, and they said, well, Justin, everything in this piece is pointing towards this one figure, this person, but you don't care about this person. you care about the moss and the rocks and the tree. Like, everything that you're doing is centered around the idea of people, but you don't care about the people. You care about the backgrounds. That's what you love doing. And, you know, at the very beginning, they asked me, well, do you want to just, like, it almost looks like you just want to sit around and paint, like, Studio Ghibli backgrounds all the time. And I was like, no.
Denial, right? Stage 2.
Denial. I couldn't pass myself from what I thought an artist needed to be. And at the very end of the mentorship, I was like, okay, yeah. So I went out and I did some studies, and I brought in some of my other studies. So I'm going to change the screen here. Let me know. My desk, fantastic. So I ended up bringing in these studies of me just going out. You know, I'm looking for pieces for these giant digital pieces, and I need inspiration. I need to find references. So I'm going out and I'm painting them and coming and bring them back as reference. And these guys are like, Justin, what are you doing? Like, I'm like, yeah, but these are studies. I did these in, like, you know, 45 minutes, and these are for other things. And they're like, no, this is what you love doing.
They could see it.
And they could see it, and I couldn't see it. And so I ended up kind of going through this very introspective process of being like, okay, well, where's the value of art come from?
Mm-hmm.
Does it come from being an artist? No, because being an artist in my head involves, you know, being really good at anatomy and really good at all of these processes.
You know, it's funny. It's funny that we all have this in our head. We build up what the idea of being not only an artist is, but a successful artist. A lot of it, I think, comes down to what we've been exposed to, what art circles we're lingering in. But it can be a very daunting and haunting thing for, I think, a lot of us.
It is. And at the end of this process, this 3-month process, I kind of just I realized art is what you make it. Being an artist is what you make of it. And I don't have to be anything for anyone. In fact, there's this idea of, like, okay, so I was painting those giant paintings, and I had a person as the center of it, and my person was crap because
I've been there, man.
I don't care about it. And so if I made my painting about the backgrounds that I loved, my paintings as a whole would be better, and I would make better paintings. And so I started to go through this process. I went, okay, it is what I want to do. I've kind of shed some of the ideas about what I think it means to be an artist. And this is where it starts going crazy. So at the beginning of this process, I had 400 followers on Instagram, maybe like 28 followers on Twitter.
What's the time frame of this? Is this like a year or 2 years ago? This is
9 months ago.
9 months ago.
Yes.
You had, what, 400 Instagram followers?
Yeah.
Woo! As I know your numbers now, like...
Yeah, so what happened? What happened is this. I said, okay, this is who I am. This is what I want to be. And so I separated what I was doing at the time, my books, from myself. Suddenly, because I separated my books from myself, me pushing my books, I was able to get rid of the stuff that I want to be that for myself, but it's not actually a good book cover. So I pushed all of that stuff to one side. Suddenly I could charge more for my books and get more attention because these things just looked like books, and that was great. And then I was separated myself. By that I'm saying the nature stuff and this traditional work, this stuff. I separated that from all of the digital work, the book covers, the game work, and I got rid of that from my Instagram account and my Twitter account. And I started posting just all of this stuff, right?
Yeah.
And suddenly what happened is that people went from being like, okay, he's an artist, but I don't really know what I'm signing up for, to like, oh, this is what he does. I can sign up for that. Because they suddenly knew what I was doing and who I was.
Yeah, you're not only playing to your strength now, but you're playing to your heart. And it's all right. The focus. I think that's the key word. There's so much focus in what you're presenting and telling the world about yourself as an artist now, that it's unequivocally like there's no mixed messaging whatsoever.
There's no mixed messaging. It's 100%. Oh, I know who he is.
And there's a lot of value in that, and I know that's part of my own thing because I've had a very similar journey that you have, and different timelines and different much longer learning curve. But yeah, I still like a lot of my art still shines through in the jack of all trades sort of hats that I've had to wear and still partially wear in the past, where I still take jobs for book covers, for like sci-fi prop design, lots of nonsense that like. I don't like to share, or I don't talk a lot about that, but like, yeah, like I do have a lot of that too, and I try to like really restrain. And I think that's a hard part for me, is restraining what I present to the public.
It is really hard. It's very hard, because also there's this sense of, if I'm deciding to go down one single path, what I'm actually deciding is I'm not going down the other paths, and I'm not available for those things, and it's like, you start to think about all of the lost opportunity.
Yeah, all the doors that close.
And doors close. And I want to be good at that stuff. Like, I still do daily anatomy studies. I still work at things that I've not incorporated into my stuff, because it's mixed messaging. It's also just, one day I'll pull it in and I'll figure out how I want to deal with that. But right now I'm focusing on
this
stuff that I need to focus on. Yeah. And this is working. So this isn't a promise, and I'm trying not to have this come out wrong, but within a couple of weeks of me making that decision, I went from 400 followers on Instagram to 7,000.
That's huge. That's huge.
It's crazy, and some. Because what happened is that I have some friends who have large accounts, and they like this work, but I wasn't appropriate to show their audiences until I said, this is what I'm doing, and they went, yeah, okay, that's what my audience likes. Let me show them. And so I'm not just messaging myself. Other people now know how to represent me and message me. And communicate about me.
So yeah, there's like a huge subtext part of that like one, because if you got friends and they have big accounts, and then that's something that they can share, that they can comment on, however the algorithms work, which I don't think anybody truly knows, but that's still it's still like opening little veins that is slowly funneling right more and more traffic to you.
Absolutely. And like, follow accounts on everything, and there's some degree where it doesn't matter, but also sales, it's a numbers game.
Yeah,
people need to know who you are and where to find you, and every little bit helps, and everyone has a friend and a friend of a friend.
Yes.
And the bigger the network is, the more likely you are to sell, and just to find friends and to find relationships.
So I think for a lot of people, right, it's going to come down to is like, how do you get your own snowball rolling down that hill? And that's something, right? You got to look really deep inside to really do fine, and you can't be afraid to like cut the tail off, cut the excess fat out of your work, out of your body of work, if it doesn't align what you're doing, perhaps if it's not your strength, right? I think a lot of people have to realize you can love, you can admire, you can still do this art. But if it's not adding to your brand or your persona as an artist, it can ultimately hinder you and hold you back, right? Quite a bit.
Yeah. Well, the next question is, how did I know this was the right track? How do you find what it is for you? And I know for me, a lot of the introspection came from like, okay, so why did I ever first start doing it in the first place? Start painting, start drawing, and I think most importantly to me was the question, where do I find value in art?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the place that I can give value in art. And for me, like I was saying, I have this sensory processing issue, so sounds just drain the life essence out of me. Loud sounds, intense sounds. There we go. And it's just this crazy thing, and the only way for me to be able to escape that sometimes, the only way I've ever been able to find joy, consistency in my life, because when I was a kid, I didn't really have much training in how to be emotionally stable, um, was to go out. And so I've always had this constant searching peace and tranquility. And I'm like constantly valuing this so much because of my own damage that I can turn around and be able to communicate about it and articulate about it in a way that not everyone can, because not everyone craves this subject matter as much as I do. So suddenly I have this value that I can give to people. And if I'm trying to make some dynamic, aggressive painting,
Robots burning villages.
yeah, exactly. Robots burning villages, aliens coming down like giant cyborgs, whatever. If I'm doing that, um, I'm not I'm not so naturally keyed to do that and communicate well about it.
So it's like, yeah, it's like walking up a very steep flight of stairs carrying a bunch of baggage. It's like you can produce something, but I mean, it's gonna be working every fabric of your being in overtime.
Yeah,
And it always shows in the end what comes out effortlessly versus what something you really have to work to produce.
absolutely. Yeah, and the time it takes too. So for me, the transition from doing a lot of book covers to deciding not to was that I realized me doing a book cover for somebody else and trying to meet their every standard and trying to do something that's not natural for me takes 3 or 4 times as long as me doing something for myself and having it produce way better. It's a terrible thought.
You know what my kryptonite of images is, and I've been dealing this all this week, is like kind of painting and drawing animals that are expressive.
Absolutely. And there's this warring tension. The person in me that says you need to be a good artist is saying you need to go and work on that stuff
Right.
until you're really good and until it's intriguing to you. And to some degree that's true, but it's discipline. It's discipline in allowing myself to do the things that I am good at here and now for what I do, and then having time set aside for becoming a better artist, but not letting that overtake everything else.
Definitely.
It's hard, so hard.
It is, especially when you have the pressure of like when you start to have a family, right, and mouths to feed,
yeah.
Mortgages to pay. There is always that weight and that pressure on the ability to produce what you're producing, how you're producing it, and then that ties all into the business side of it. So has any of this in part of the process, has any of it actually alleviated some of that creative pressure on you?
Oh, you mean financially?
Yeah, like, and just like that mental stress side of trying
The
to
mental stress.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it definitely has. I mean, financially, I'm in the middle of so many transitions financially, so it's hard. Sometimes it's really good. Sometimes it's not easy.
I get that.
But that's how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
The mental pressure, absolutely. I was so afraid that I would never be able to paint. If I made this decision, I'd never be able to paint all of the things again. I'd lose so many opportunities. And like, what am I just going to paint trees and rocks all day and water? Like, what the heck? And so I, coming into it, viewed it as like, man, I'm just narrowing myself down. What happened though is that it narrows down, and then once you lock in on this thing, the amount of paintings that I could create just explodes.
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly these are somehow positive restraints, like restraints that allow for more creativity.
Yeah.
In a way. And I've heard lots of musicians talk about that. I've heard lots of different people talk about that say the one way to be creative is to give yourself constraints.
Yes.
And then more interesting things happen. And suddenly you're like, oh yeah, I know what I want to do. I know what I need to do. And I'd heard that in theory, and I honestly didn't believe it until it happened, until that's where I'm at. Yeah, actually learning to trust your gut
Yep.
when your gut says, yes, that's it.
You back. So
Yeah.
back to your Instagram. What are you up to now?
What am I up to now? Let's have a
I think
look.
you're almost at 58, or you might be up to close to 60,000
Yeah, I'm working on 60,000.
in one year.
In yeah, 9 months.
1 year, folks.
Yeah. So from the beginning, escape to my world to breathe, create, and learn. Like, this is who I am.
Damn right.
This is kind of my message. And selfish plug for me. Hey, here's actually a painting that I'm doing on an online tutorial for painting water.
Awesome.
So feel free to come
It's a
check
hot
out my
topic for
stuff.
the channel. People are always asking, and I never get around to it. I'm sorry. But you can check out Justice.
So a lot of the stuff that I do is I'll come in and I'll ask a question, because what Instagram does is it'll take your post and then it'll give it to a percentage of your audience, and then based on the responses of the percentage of audience, it'll then give it to another certain people and then another certain group of people. So despite the fact that I have 58.5 thousand followers, it doesn't always get distributed to that many people, which kind of sucks. So what you have to do is you have to ask genuine questions that you actually want to know the answers to, and start conversations, so that the first group of people that it sends it to, it comes back with saying, okay, they responded and there were conversations and people saved it, and there was a lot of stuff going on. They went to your profile, they went to your website. So normally I'll ask a question and I'll find a way to get them to my website. If for no reason other than for Instagram to say, okay, he moved people. And so this was a good post. It was worth a lot. You can send them out. People love video.
On Instagram, yeah.
And Instagram loves video. So most of my stuff, it's video.
Like what? Like little 30-second clips just like this showing. That's awesome.
Yeah, little 30-second. It'll be like the end of a painting, the process of like untaping something. It'll be in the middle of painting something. Yeah, there's so much. If I can get people to move and comment and respond, and basically like I'm telling a story, even if it's just the simple story of, here's a painting, I want to see the details of the painting, so let's look at the details over here, let's look at the details over there. It's intriguing. Like, that's the way that we're built. We're built for story, for unraveling of information, and if I can do that for you, then you're going to be there and be captivated more so than me just giving you an image.
Yeah. And,
like, bam,
and saying,
tutorial.
Hey, look what I did.
Hey, look what I did. Buy my thing. Yeah. And so yeah, those are some really huge things. Another thing is, people love to see work that they know, which means that you don't need to be afraid of posting your stuff again. So what will normally happen is like, hey, I have an old piece here. Okay, cool. The people go, oh, I remember that. And then they'll comment and they'll say, oh, I remember this. Like, or I loved this. I've always loved this. And then I've got a new piece, something that I'm working on. Oh, there's some audio in there. So yeah, don't be afraid of posting your stuff again, because that hits the kind of nostalgia point. And that's a good thing.
I just want to take a nap in your forests.
Oh, me too.
Because you never paint bugs in them, so it's safe.
Tyler, you're asking about.
So, right, closing a bunch of doors off, but it opens up new doors. And in this case, right, a game company contracting you out to basically do this type of work.
Yeah, so I made a Kickstarter. It was really just a couple of prints, and they saw it and they said, hey, we want that for our game. Can you come work for us? I know for sure that if I had a mixed message idea about what I do, they probably would have chosen somebody else. But another really cool thing that I didn't consider when I first started doing this is that where before I was trying to increase my skill in everything, and so everything was slowly increasing. Now I'm doing a very specific thing, and it's not even just the subject matter, but I'm doing a very specific medium, very specific kind of thing. I can work on skills and increase relevant, saleable skills like crazy quick. So that kind of intensified focus has been a side effect I really wasn't expecting.
Isn't it a funny feeling though? Like you have that picture of the stairway, right? When you have just like a nice simple picture of the stair,
yeah.
which you probably did in like an hour or two, right?
Uh-huh.
And then you get that feeling where you've worked like on a 20-hour painting and nobody
Yes.
looks at it at all, and you're like, that's like a punch to the gut. And then when you could produce something like that in 2 hours and everybody loves it, it's a funny feeling to have. But very frustrating.
So this is a really crazy lesson I learned. This is when I was back reconsidering the value of art. Well, what makes good artwork good? Mm-hmm. What makes a good artist good? Is that I was, just as you were saying, I was creating these like 20, 30-hour paintings and putting so much time and effort into it. And then literally it was this piece that I painted, in 45 minutes. I went to the botanical gardens, I sat down, and I was like, I'm going to paint. So I really want to paint this. And it was one of those things where I'm learning to trust my gut. Like, I would never step back and say, you know what, I've got a really good idea for a painting. Let me paint some stairs. Like, if I told you that, you'd be like, you're an idiot, right, Justin. I'd be like, yeah, I am. But walking past this place, my gut just said, that's beautiful. I really want to paint that. Disregarding what the subject matter is, because it really, it makes my gut feel something. Okay, great, I'm going to do it. And so I did this, and everyone's like, oh, can we have prints? I want this. This is so good. This speaks to me. And it's like, dang, that 30-hour piece that I was working on got like no response. And then this does it for me, and it does it for everyone else. Mm-hmm. Like, so what is the value of art? It's not the time I put into it. It's not the length or the thought that I put into it. To some degree, it really is, how does this make me feel?
And then how can it captivate others? Because like if you can get captivated by that, you could translate that to your viewers, because like you can make them captivated to that as well. Whereas if you sit there and force feeding like certain images, the audience would probably feel the same way. And then that feeling is just never transferred, or that the good vibes, right, are never transferred when you're forcing art.
Yeah, and it's as an artist, and this might be a little bit different as a concept artist, but I don't think so. As an artist, what I'm doing is inherently emotional, mm-hmm. because the end goal is for somebody else to be emotionally moved by what it is that I'm doing. And so the falsity that I've got into before is to try and think and reason my way to good ideas and good thoughts and good paintings. But reason it's not what we're judging everything by. The way that we feel, the way that it makes me feel, the places that it brings me to emotionally, like that's how I'm qualifying good art. So that also needs to be how I'm qualifying what I bring to the table and what I'm making, how I'm making decisions. And so I'll be spiraling down whenever I'm making up stories about what makes this good. What do I need to make this good? Like transitioning to a point where I'm fine-tuning my judgment based off my emotional state and reactions to things. Like that's definitely something that's helped me.
Yeah, and I've been working through that myself the later half of this year. I've been trained on a lot of technical scales to follow certain rules, algorithms, principles, whatever they are. And part of my growth right now is learning when to tune that out and going with my gut, going with my instinct. And the last tutorial, another plug that I put out was me working through that process of normally, technically I wouldn't go with this option, or if you're going straight up for realism, I wouldn't go with, but I'm going with this and this decision here and this decision here because it's what I'm feeling inside, and I like the way that it makes it feels, and I hope, therefore it's going to help make the audience feel the same way. So it's balancing the technical and the expressive, and finding that way to make it work for an audience.
Yeah, my thoughts on that balance are that art is primarily about communication. So we're always communicating something, and what it requires to communicate is discipline. So we have all of the disciplines. We have, like perspective and anatomy and all of these things. There's a certain degree where I can't communicate if I don't have the discipline.
Mm-hmm.
But the discipline needs to never, ever, ever be the end result.
That's very wise.
Yeah, if suddenly the discipline is the end result, and this is really hard because this is the focus for students, is discipline, because you need it. You need it. But the discipline can't be the end result. The communication, I'm saying the emotion, but it doesn't even have to be emotion, but whatever we're communicating is the end result and has to be served by the discipline. But people stand around saying, and me, this is where I was trying to create everything for book covers, is to say, if I get good enough, I will get a job. If my discipline, if my skill level in these disciplines is good enough, I will get work. Mm-hmm. When the problem is it's not communicating to people.
Yep.
Yeah, it's so hard.
And
it's such an emotionally draining journey.
It is. For me, it was over, and it's still continuing, right? It's been 3 to 4 years, right?
I get it's still there.
But it's like ultimately, the more you can work through this as an individual and process it all and know what you want to get out of everything, the better it is. That way you're not.
Absolutely.
It's like playing the dating game way too long, right? It's like fun to date. You get a lot of experience out of it, but like for a lot of people, not everybody, but if you're looking for potential spouse, that's the good long game, and that's where you'll find your ultimate happiness. So it's funny how it reciprocates that way.
Absolutely. No, that's such a good analogy.
But thank you for coming on today. This has been a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
This will probably be out like a day or two before Christmas, so Merry Christmas, everybody that
Merry
celebrates.
Christmas.
Happy holiday. We'll be back following that. But yeah, take care, everybody. Hopefully you found some value. If you have any questions for myself, if you have questions for Justin, absolutely check him out. Leave us one in the comments below. And yeah, check out his work. It's great.
Yeah, thanks guys. I'll see you later.
Care. Guys, thanks for watching. Please hit the subscribe if you want to see more. You can check me out on Facebook, ArtStation, and Instagram. If you want more in-depth content from me, I teach 2 courses at the CG Master Academy, Architecture Design and Fundamentals of Design. If you want even more learning, you can go to brushsauceacademy.com and sign up for one-on-one mentoring. Join the hundreds of students around the world and start improving your art and design today. If you want to be part of a community, we have Brush Sauce on Discord. We have monthly challenges and hangouts. There are links below for everything I mentioned. Thanks again for watching and take care.